So here's how to lean bulk correctly. And now I've been training for over 3 years now, consistently, and I've made countless mistakes. And bro, I've came to the conclusion that lean bulking is the single best way to build muscle, right? And now here's a full video on how to lean bulk the right way. But first of all, why lean bulking? Why not just, regular bulking? Why not, main gaining? And for that, my friend, I made a full diagram. So, like literally, take a look. Let's get the mic here. Yeah, I think, yeah, okay. So, as you can see here, just give me a second. Okay, as you can see here, let's get the pen tool. There's three, like, columns, right? Here, bulking, lean bulking, main gaining. Wait, give me a second, man. So, in these three columns, I've compared the amount of muscle you gain, the amount of muscle you gain, fat you gain. Okay, let's say, for example, for 12 months, you've been bulking, lean bulking, main gaining for 3 months. This is how it would look like, right? So, as you can see, all of them bulking, lean bulking, main gaining. So, the bar with lines in it is represents the fat you gain, and the empty bars represent the muscle you gain. So first of all, let's compare bulking and lean bulking. So let's say you've been bulking hypothetically for 12 months, right? Bulking, and you gain a good amount of muscle, but you also gain so much fat, right? But with lean bulking, you gain the same amount of muscle, but with way less fat. So obviously, lean bulking solos bulking, right? It's way better. You gain less fat and you gain the same amount of muscle. So technically, you could go for much longer, gaining even more muscle, right? And now let's compare it with main gaining. Main gaining has been getting lots of attractions. I don't know when it popped off and all, but it has been getting some attention, right? And most people have been talking about it and all. But here, this is the truth about it. Look, as you can see, in main gaining, you gain a little bit of muscle, okay, and a little bit of fat. And the goal with main gaining is to stay this to stay at around the same body fat, or even get a little bit, so you can stay lean and somehow just gain some muscle. Bro, just commit to a bulk. As you can see, this is too slow. Main gaining is too slow. Bulking is okay, it's alright, but you gain too much fat, so you're gonna get gain lots of fat, and it's gonna be demotivating. So it's also out. The best way is lean bulking, right? So how to so how do you lean bulk correctly? So the first thing when it comes to lean bulking is the timeline. Like how long should you be lean bulking for? And the amount of time is at least 3 months, 6 months, a good amount of time, right? The longer you can go, the better, because you'll be gaining more muscle. But if you get too fat, obviously cut down. But the goal is to keep it as long as possible without getting too fat, right? Because gaining fat is inevitable, but you also gain muscle, which is the big priority, right? So now you're gonna be lean bulking for at least 3 months, 2 months, but you have to be bulking for the long term. It's not a 2 week phase, no. It's a long term thing, right? So, bro, if you're starting bulking, you must stick to it and ignore all the temptations to cut, right? That's the number one thing. And then comes the diet. How much do you eat, and how do you do it all? The first thing about the diet is that you must keep a protein high. Protein is the priority because you're trying to build muscle, right? Obviously with the training and all, which I will come to in the next point, but you gotta be eating high protein. That's first in the diet. And then how much should you be gaining on a lean bulk, right? Because the difference between a bulk and a lean bulk is that a lean bulk is a bit slower. A bulk is doesn't matter, you just gain as much as you can, right? So with the lean bulk, you try to gain the weight slower. But how slow and how much? How much should you actually gain? You should gain about 1 to 2 kilograms a month. 1 to 2 kilograms for the whole month that you gain, right? Which is about 2 to 4 pounds for the month. It's a bit slow, but that's like the sweet spot, right? This way you're maximizing muscle gain and also minimizing fat gain, right? And then that's it for the diet. Okay, it's like pretty simple. Just eat a little bit more to the point that you're gaining weight slowly, keeping protein high, and that's it for the diet. But here's the thing, so many people make mistakes in their training, not their diet, because like eating was quite simple and easy, right? Okay, it might be some hard like some days, but it's honestly quite simple. Anyways, for the training, this is where people make lots of mistakes, right? And for the training, there's like four things that you must remember. So, bro, the first two things when it comes to the training is intensity and volume. Now, for the intensity, it's pretty straightforward and simple. Go to failure every single set. I know you might have heard like the studies actually suggest that reps and reserve and like no, just go to failure, bro. Trust me, go to failure every single set. Actually, the nervous system and the central nervous, bro, go to failure. But I'm gonna give you like some rules with it, but just go to failure, right? In every single set. That's it for the intensity. And number two is the volume. Volume. I know it sounds a bit weird, but it's actually pretty important and crucial, right? Anyways, how does the volume like work and all? Because you might have heard like the term volume being thrown around, but like nobody like really tells you like in depth, right? Volume basically refers to the amount of sets you do, and like you think about it in weeks, how many sets you do a week for each muscle. So for example, chest. For the chest, how many sets should you be doing? And for all your muscles, right? I'm just using chest as an example, right? You're gonna be using this for every muscle per week, right? So how many sets should you actually be doing, right? And bro, this is important because if you do low volume, look at the start, like when you're still a beginner, it doesn't really matter as much. But as you get advanced, it's really important because you gotta keep your volume a bit high, right? For the stimulation and all, right? So how much is enough, right? Like how much sets are enough? Look, 9 or more, right? But don't go under 9. 9 sets a week for each muscle. That sounds kind of weird. Like 9 sets a week for each muscle, but it's pretty simple. It's gonna be, for example, for chest, 3 exercises per week, and each of these 3 exercises are 3 sets, 3 sets, 3 sets. That's 9 sets in total for chest per week. So for the whole week for chest, you can do just 3 exercises and that's enough. You could do more, but don't do less, right? And this is applied to every other muscle. Biceps, triceps, shoulders, right? And even your legs, right? But that's the rule. Do enough volume for each muscle per week, right? Those were the first two rules when it comes to training, intensity and volume. And then progressive overload, that's the third thing. I know it sounds pretty simple and all, but most of you guys do it wrong, right? And like, what's the correct way? First of all, you must like commit to a rep range. My personal rep range is 8 till 15 reps for each exercise, except legs, because like 8 to 15 reps for legs is kind of like cardio at that point, right? So for legs, 8 to 12, right? Anyways, when it comes to our rep range, 8 till 15 reps for every exercise. So for example, let's say you're doing 5 kilogram bicep curls, right? How does progressive overload work here? Let's say with the 5 kilogram bicep curls, you're doing 8 reps, first session, okay? Next session, try to push yourself again to do 9. Next session, 10. Next session, until you hit 15 reps. Now you finish the rep range. You went from 8 to 15. After you reach 15, you can increase the weight to now 7.5. And you start to find yourself being able to do 7 reps, 8 reps. Next session, 9 reps. And you keep like trying to improve every session until you hit 15 again, and then increase the weight. And that's the correct way to progressively overload properly. And just like I said, apply this to every exercise, right? And now the fourth thing is like more like a tip, which is basically to prioritize your form over everything. You know, you might have heard about sheet reps, momentum to get like an extra rep, but what you're really doing is just making the weight lighter so you can get an extra rep. With cheat reps, you use momentum, like bending your back and all. Like for example, bicep curls, you like using your hips and all, and like momentum and all, just like curl. But what you're actually doing is that you're just lowering the weight so you can do more reps. But that's not like proper progressive overload, and that's just gonna injure you, right? So, bro, always perfect your form and prioritize your form of everything. And, bro, if you want to get jacked and you want me to personally coach you and help you, DM me on Instagram. And that's it.